I love almost everything about my Sovol SV08. Almost everything. So I came up with a stupidly complicated solution. But first, let me tell you what you should do. Get the official Sovol Enclosure. Unless you want to save a few bucks, risk power tool injuries, endure intense frustration and waste a bunch of time. I wanted clear acrylic on the front, sides and top, with matte black acrylic sheet at the back. 3mm is a good thickness. Then over to Cutlist Optimizer to plan the cuts for the clear acrylic. The dimensions for the back panel are the same as the front. I added 3mm height to the sides, front and back for the lip that you'll see later in the video, and cut all the panels on the table saw, being careful to be as accurate as possible with the dimensions. I 3D printed some drilling guides for precision placement of the holes. Starting from the corner of the panel with the first guide, I drilled a 2mm hole and then opened it up to 4mm. I used a second guide that slotted into the first hole and allowed for accurate spacing of the second hole, and then it did the same for the third one. I've included links to the drilling guides in the description. Remove the protective film to reveal that beautiful clear gloss panel and wipe off the remaining dust from sanding the edges. I attached the side and back panels with 6mm M3 machine screws. Onto the hinges for the door. I was inspired by the hinges from the official Enclosure, although I wanted a single panel door to maximize noise reduction and visibility. The top hinge has a housing which screws onto the frame with 6mm M3 machine screws, and a door hinge which bolts onto the door with 8mm M3 machine screws into M3 nuts in the back of the hinge. I printed these in PETG. The bottom hinge is pretty much a mirror of the top hinge, but not quite. The hinge pins are 16mm M3 pins from AliExpress. Locating the hinge holes accurately on the door is critical. Again, I used a 3D printed drilling guide which registers off the corners of the panel. This is one of the reasons why getting the dimensions accurate when cutting the panels on the table saw is so key. I used 3D printed templates to mark out the relief for the hinges. To cut the relief, I first scored the acrylic. I then used my hacksaw to cut into the relief before snapping it out with some pliers. And then cleaned up the edge with a file. The hole for the door handle was made using a 14mm spade bit. I went very slowly with this, drilling partway through from one side before turning the door panel over and finishing drilling from the other side, taking care not to crack the acrylic. Fitting the lower hinge to the door panel is a little bit fiddly. The door panel is then inserted in the frame before fitting the upper hinge in place. You can play with the positioning of the door before tightening the screws to make sure it closes properly. And this is what it looks like installed. I used a 3D printed profile template to file rounded edges onto the top. And then one last satisfying peel of the protective film. I modified and printed the official Sovol top hat to eliminate the ventilation holes and maximize the noise reduction. Just print 2 of each. And that was it. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It has drastically reduced the noise levels from the printer, and it's improved its looks. I will be looking at fitting an exhaust fan with a sound baffle to keep the temperature lower when I'm printing PLA. Watch this space. Links to all materials and 3D printed tools and templates are in the description. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and enjoy your pointless pursuit.